do is a river crossing across here, and we're going to go off to the right for about 4 hours that way. So we're going to go over this crest here, 4 hours just this way. And then we've got another peak about 14,100 feet.
JPAC recovery teams get into some very unexpected places. Once solid leads on a missing service member are found, a team will go out to scout the location to determine whether to mount a full-scale recovery effort. The work takes them to remote places on the Korean Peninsula and Southeast Asia, World War II sites in the South Pacific, Eastern Europe, Russia, and even China. It's often forgotten that thousands of Americans served on mainland Asia in World War II. These rare images show Soviet and American troops fraternizing in China in 1944.
Oh, careful there. Oops. Okay, this is Site B, directly down ravine. I can't spend a lot of time recording because Stephanie took a spill and has a head injury, so we're moving out. But that's uphill towards Site A.
It's a dangerous job, even though we're not getting shot at. It's dangerous. We're out in the middle of nowhere. But out in the middle of nowhere, literally nowhere in Vietnam, you're going out to the local market, and questionable items. Should I use this bottled water that doesn't have the safety cap on it? Yeah, it's something else.
The painstaking archival research identifies former prisoner of war camps, battle, and crash sites.
Khi ở trên trời, vinh quang thoát lác, nhưng nếu bị bắn rơi xuống đất, thì bọn cứu tá ở lầu 5 góc Mỹ đã dạy cho phi công của chúng đủ cách chiến áp.
In exploratory trips, potential witnesses are interviewed and precise locations found on the ground. Once the required governmental permissions are obtained, the recovery teams go in. They'll spend about 30 days on site, hiring local workers to help conduct a full-scale archaeological excavation.
We can have between 50 to 300 workers, and basically we have to manage them and help instruct them on how to set up camp and set up the digging site, and there's multiple things going at one time.
The work that you do out there is sometimes really tiring, monotonous a lot of times, but when you start to lose track of things, you just bring everything back into perspective while you're there and what you're doing, and it makes it all better.
The excavation area is divided into a grid pattern. It's carefully dug up, bucket by bucketful of dirt, which is then sifted, looking for items of military paraphernalia, personal effects, and most importantly, human remains.
It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. We found some teeth. We found some possible human remains, and it's an awesome feeling.
It's huge. It's huge. Just like finding someone, your own family member.
I can't even describe the excitement that you feel when you find a dog tag or you find a tooth with a restoration in it, because that is almost the key that you're going to have to identify these individuals to get them home to their families.
Recovery missions can also provide some unique personal experiences for team members.
We were base camping on one side of a mountain. We had to walk through rice paddies in the valley to go up another side of the mountain to get to our site. And getting there and finding the guy, it was a site that said that the command thought was unrecoverable, that there's no way that we would be able to find him. We went there, and within 2 weeks, we were getting personal effects and looks like we might have found the guy.
The alternative is not to put the bag up there and just hoover the coral out of the way, and it shoots out the back of it.
The scientific work of the teams is directed by civilian specialists, like forensic anthropologist Dr. William Belcher, and some of the work even takes place underwater. In this 2004 mission, the JPAC team searched for remains of Major Quintus Nelson, a Marine fighter pilot who crashed into the sea during a World War II battle for Palau Island in the South Pacific.
This is the debt that, I owe my father's generation and his father's generation for the freedom that they've given me. And so it's part of the debt that I need to pay back to my country. It's not just a job. I think it's something that they have internalized into themselves, because I think most of these people realize, what if that was me? Particularly the service members. People are always thinking, what if this was me? And so I want to keep that in my mind to do the best job I can and recover these remains.
Sometimes diplomacy generates a recovery, and sometimes the cooperation goes both ways. Here, remains from the Korean War are handed over to the North Koreans in a ceremony at the demilitarized zone. However a recovery is made, remains of American service members are brought to Hawaii and accorded full military honors. They're brought to JPAC's renowned Central Identification Laboratory. Here, the forensics process begins. To prevent any personal bias from affecting their conclusions, scientists at first have no knowledge of the cases they work on.
They're just given the case number. They check the material out and they begin working on it to separate it into the number of individuals, determine the sex, the age, the race, and the stature or height of the individual.
When DNA testing is required, small pieces of tooth or bone are shipped to the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory in Rockville, Maryland, for analysis and identification.
I think that most of us that consider the possibility of going somewhere and not coming home, and I know how I feel personally, and I know in speaking to other folks that have been in that same position, one of the things that is foremost in your mind is, if something does happen, will you let my family know? Will you tell them as much as you can about what actually happened?
Technicians here specialize in mitochondrial DNA. It's distinct and separate from nuclear DNA, which makes us all individuals.
You have only one copy of nuclear DNA per cell, and it's very large. Mitochondrial DNA, on the other hand, are in these little organelles called mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of the cell. They drive the energy for the cell that it needs to do its job. And there are hundreds of these little organelles and hundreds of copies of mitochondrial DNA in those organelles.
The sample is first cleaned thoroughly. Then, in a complex series of processes, mitochondrial DNA is extracted and amplified, or copied, many times. Mitochondrial DNA lasts much longer than nuclear DNA. It's identical through the generations on the mother's side of a family. Your mother's mother, your mother, and you have identical mitochondrial DNA. The DNA is treated with dyes, viewed under fluorescent light, and eventually turned into a computer graph showing a sample's deviation from the baseline for comparison. Then those results are compared to a blood sample given by a maternal relative. It tends to take much longer than dramatizations programs like CSI might lead you to believe.
There are some cases that take years in order to put them into completion, where you can actually send out a report that puts them up for an identification.
The mostly civilian workers here in Rockville, like those in Honolulu, work blind. They know very little about the case they're analyzing until the very end of the process.
You feel responsible for the people who these bones are. You feel like it's your responsibility to help find their name, because they don't have a name, and that's like the most important thing you can have is your name. And so moving somebody from a burial that's unknown, or just a location where they're stored that they're unknown, to being placed in a casket with a name, that has to be the most important part.